Hi, my name is Nathalie. My pronouns are she, her, hers, and I'm currently 20 years old. I'm a Brandeis STEM Posse Scholar, and so I'm going to be a rising junior in the fall, intending to pursue a Bachelor's of Science and Master's of Science in Neuroscience. And outside of my academics, I'm a peer health educator for Bridge to Wellness. I'm a core team member for Univirtual, and I am a Roosevelt peer academic advisor for the Brandeis student body.
Wow, that's awesome. What's Univirtual Learning?
Univirtual Learning is a nonprofit organization that is dedicated to providing college prep to underrepresented minorities from literally all over the country. And so we provide everything from test prep to mock interview prep to essay writing in hopes that we can help these students go to college, essentially, because a lot of these schools don't have the resources or materials to provide to their students in hopes that they can help bolster their pathway to college. And so our role as coaches in Univirtual Learning is to help the high school students get there and start their path to college and essentially get into college.
So what has motivated you to be a mentor for your friends, younger students, and even your family?
So I think it really is about seeing that you've come from a place where other people are currently at and seeing that you're also going to move forward. So for me, being such a community-oriented person means that I want to help those go from where I am to where I currently am. So I think it's about seeing how you can make an impact to help those around you. So for me, I always see a chance to, use everything that I have and everything that I am to help these people move forward, right? And by these people, I mean my friends and my family who are struggling in a way that I can, see, what aspect of me can help them get out of their struggles, or how can I help them advance to where they want to be? And so with that, with all my mentorship positions, or just me being a community-oriented person, I definitely just want to help them make the changes so they can move forward and just become better versions of themselves.
That's awesome. And what have you found is the most challenging when being a mentor, either that affects you or affects people that you're working with?
I think something that's challenging in terms of being a mentor is that it's always a learning curve. It's always something that I can learn from or grow from, because I don't think there's a mentor that's always perfect from the jump, and there's not a situation where you'll just give your solution and that's gonna be the end all be all to the problem. I think it's always a challenge where you always have to workshop with whoever you're trying to advise or mentor, because knowing that they aren't you, the way that they interpret your solutions or your help or your advice will be different than the way I would interpret said things, right? And so it's important to note that these people, right, whoever you're helping is going to proceed at a certain rate, at a certain way, that's going to be different from you. So for me, it's always a challenge of seeing where they're coming from, seeing where they're at, seeing where they hope to go, and working with that. Because while you might have a vision, while I might have a vision for them, doesn't mean that our visions are at the same. Doesn't mean we're seeing eye to eye from the jump. And so it's important to understand and take some time to understand where they're at before even moving forward, and before even beginning to workshop a solution with them.
That's great. How do you feel this work applies to your role with Bridge to Wellness?
And so I think when it comes to mentorship, being a peer health educator with Bridge to Wellness means that I'm incorporating aspects of mental, physical, social, emotional health and well-being. And so I think in terms of telling someone what to do, that doesn't work in terms of telling someone about themselves and how to improve their well-being, because well-being is so multifaceted and complex that if you were to start telling people how they were from your perspective or your point of view, it wouldn't work. And so I think that's the biggest challenge, seeing figuring out where someone is coming from or all their life experiences such that it leads up to this moment of, okay, how are you in the situation that you're in? why is that? Because just because you can't, you think you have the expertise. Like, I received training during the summer to talk about things like pertaining to mental and physical, emotional, social well-being. But just because my life has allowed me to have certain, I guess, aspects of those aspects of health and well-being down, and someone else doesn't, I need to figure out where they're coming from, why it might be different from me, and then figure out how I can best cater to their experiences rather than saying, oh, like, this is how I did it, therefore it should work for you. It doesn't necessarily work like that. Something that's really interesting in terms of my, I guess, just general progression through academia, so I could have gotten to where I am today, is that I've seen both spectrums of socioeconomic, status in my education system. So from nursery until the end of middle school, I went to a primarily white private school, and then I went to a public high school in New York. So with that being said, going to Brandeis, I still see the same, divisions in socioeconomic status, right? And that just happens among all of my peers at Brandeis. So we have all of those who are well-to-do, but then those who are not so well-to-do. And so we also see the disparities in our classrooms, right? As a woman in STEM, right? I'll see those who have had the resources and the finances to support hours upon hours of tutoring for the topic that I'm learning in class, but I'm also seeing the peers who are seeing this for the first time because they went to an institution where they were not able to access the same resources or materials, or even the topic itself that we're learning in this classroom. But at the end of the day, we are all in this together, but the way we've gotten to where we are is from different points, different perspectives, different ways of entering. And so in Brandeis, right, seeing intersectional oppression, I've seen it a lot in terms of socioeconomic status, and unfortunately it has a lot to do with race as well, because seeing how our society functions, we see people who are on the lower end of socioeconomic status coming from communities of color or underrepresented minorities. And then we see all the well-to-do individuals are, not only we expect the white students to be up there, but we also see our international students as well up there. And so with that being said, we'll see how Brandeis approaches it as well. They'll always assume that individuals of color are those who do not have the means or the resources to have gotten some pre-interaction with the material before the course itself. And then we see all of our well-to-do students getting the resources or the means to have an interaction with the course material before the course even starts. And so that's what I've noticed a lot at Brandeis University.
I would like to switch gears and hear more of your personal emotional reactions to the lack of representation in your classroom, specifically your STEM classes. How does it feel for you, as a woman of color and a Black woman specifically, to step into a very predominantly white, predominantly Asian, predominantly male classroom? And do your professors ever address this, or do you think it's on their mind?
As a Black woman in STEM, it's easy for me to see maybe myself and two other people who look like me doing whatever it is that I want to do. For example, in computer science, I could barely tell you how many Black women there were in the classroom, but how many white males there were, how many Asian males there were. But where are all the Black women in STEM? Who even knows? I don't know where they are. I don't know. My teachers couldn't provide an explanation either. They had no idea where they were. Even though my computer science Professor Antonella, she's a woman, but where are all the women in her classroom? She doesn't know this. She's known that, the amount of women in her classroom has increased over time, but it's still not enough to be a 50-50 split between men and women in the class. And so just things like this, as someone who's pursuing neuroscience, as someone who wants to go both into research and potentially medicine, I don't know where a lot of people are like me. And so that's been one of the biggest challenges going forward, because while I do have the brains and the intellectual capacity to keep up with the material and to move forward, it's getting tougher and tougher to be the only one who looks like me approaching any of these classes. Seeing people who don't look like me or don't, or I don't perceive to be like identifying with me, those are some of the hardest moments, because it's like, oh my gosh, will I have to do this class by myself? Who am I going to talk to in this class? And even during Zoom, right? Like, I'm not going to spend time scrolling through the participants list trying to figure out who I know in the class, because at the end of the day, everyone's camera is off, right? So we don't know who is who. And so just that feeling of like, I'm going to have to take this class on by myself is extremely, extremely heavy.
Since there are very few women of color that are in the neuroscience program at Brandeis and studying neuroscience at large, what keeps you going when you can't look to a role model that looks like you?
So what keeps me driven isn't the fact that I'll be able to look at Black women doing what I want to do as role models, but the idea that I can be the role model for other Black women who want to do neuroscience behind me, looking at me and saying, oh my gosh, like Nathalie is doing it, so maybe I can do it too. And so if I become the role model that I was hoping to seek as a Black woman in neuroscience, just doing that and being someone who can be someone who, others look up to for support or for guidance or for motivation keeps me going. So that means I have to keep going so those behind me can move forward as well. And so that just keeps me going for all the hard classes where I feel alone, because at the end of the day, I'm going to walk so those behind me can run. And they can run so much further than I could have done initially at first, in hopes that, we can have more diversity and more inclusivity in STEM in general, but also in neuroscience, because that's where I'm going to be. If I think about my role models, why I have not seen many Black women in neuroscience, I know that they are there somewhere, right? And so with that being said, if I can do it, that means someone else has done it, and therefore you can do it. And so don't ever give up. Don't ever falter on your dreams if that is what you seek to do, because I know at the end of the day, you got it, 100%. And don't lose faith in yourself.
Wave? Yes.
Hey!
Okay,
Do it again.
Oh, wait.
Hey!
Nah, let me stop. Oh my god. I have mad dog hair on here.